Hello everyone. Let's meet a versatile personality today who is a poet, a critic, a translator, a writer, working across various languages like German, Sanskrit, English, Hindi, and Marathi. She has translated dramas, poems, stories, and novels. She has been writing articles for various magazines and newspapers. She is a member of the International Association of Theatre Critics and writes theatre reviews for the website Mumbai Theatre Guide. She is a coordinator of the project Poets Translating Poets. She is working as a coordinator and head of the Information and Library Department at the Maximula Bhavan, Goethe Institute, Mumbai. Hello Jayashree, welcome to the show.
Sagrana Abhivadan, thanks a lot. That was quite elaborate. Okay, versatile, multifaceted. I feel humbled, I must say, but also elated to meet all of you. तर सांगायचा मुद्दा काय की संस्कृत भाषा शिकल्यामुळे बाकी इतर भाषांकडे डोळसपणे बघण्याची एक वृत्ती, प्रवृत्ती आणि इच्छा निर्माण झाली. त्यामुळे हे सगळ्या माझ्या इतर भाषा प्रावीण्याचं किंवा कौशल्याचं श्रेय मी संस्कृतला दे.
So I would like to start the interview by asking you about your current role. You're working in the Goethe Institute, Maximula Bhavan, Mumbai.
Yeah. See, I've been working, my association with the Goethe Institute started 27 years ago. So I was at the regional institute and I was looking after the regional cultural program. Then I shifted to Mumbai. In Mumbai, I wanted to do my teacher's training, but my Karma und meine Seele war hier in der Programmabteilung, wie man das schön sagt. So obviously, I opted for cultural programs again. And after that, there was a kind of internal shifting, and I said I would like to take over literature and theatre. Along with that, a little bit of digital media, the media lounge, the books, etc. So now I can say that my position is a bridge between the language department, the cultural programs department, and of course we have our own projects, like you mentioned, the Poets Translating Poets, or the Theatre Translation Project, etc., etc. So I'm wunschlos glücklich. So see, for last so many years, I was looking after the Bildende Künste, that is visual arts or theatre performances, music, more classical music or jazz, etc. So working with Goethe Institute gave me that kind of an all-encompassing view of German culture, literature, language, classic as well as contemporary. And after a point, you just don't want to present something or sort of try to juxtapose the Indian culture and German culture or culture from German-speaking countries. You want to contribute more creatively. And thanks to our creative directors, they floated these projects. Of course, it was not easy to get that kind of funding. But Dr. Martin Welde, he had that kind of a vision. He could create such an ambience where we involve 21 South Asian languages, because we are part of the South Asian network, the Goethe Institute. So 21 South Asian languages and poets from German-speaking countries, living poets, of course. And this Poets Translating Poets project was started in 2015 and it went on till 2019. At the end of the day, if you look at the published book, you have around 400 translations of 192 or 95 poems into all these languages, 4 poems each, plus a write-up on the poet. And I mean, this was an immensely enriching experience personally as well as professionally, because at the professional level, of course, तुम्हाला ते administrative पण सगळं सांभाळायला लागतं आणि वेबसाईट तयार केली होती आम्ही त्याची. ती अजूनही आहे, ती तुम्ही पाहू शकता. आणि त्या वेबसाईटवर मग प्रत्येक कवीच्या 4-4 कविता, म्हणजे जर्मन भाषेतल्या कविता तुम्हाला ओडियामध्ये मिळतील आणि ओडियातल्या जर्मनमध्ये मिळतील. आणि मग त्याच्यानंतर आम्ही एक त्याचा नाखस्पिल केला. जर्मनीमध्ये वेगवेगळ्या लिटरेचर फेस्टिवल्समध्ये आपल्याकडचे काही कवी पाठवले. ते इतकं म्हणजे समाधान देऊन गेलेलं असं. तुम्ही भारतात राहता किंवा दक्षिण आशियात राहता, but you hardly know what kind of poetry is being written right now in Odia or Tamil. जर माहितीच असेल तुम्ही ते थोडीफार इंग्लिश मधनं तुम्हाला कळते. पण इथे ह्या प्रोजेक्टचं वैशिष्ट्यच हे होतं की हे इथे एक इंटरलिनियर ट्रान्सलेटर होता. म्हणजे मी त्या साकव संवादाचं मी नाव दिलंय त्याला. म्हणजे ब्रिज ट्रान्सलेटर ज्याला तुम्ही म्हणता इंग्लिशमध्ये, तसा हा साकव संवादक होता. त्यालाच फक्त 2 भाषा येत होत्या. म्हणजे आता मी स्वतः साकव संवादिका होते आणि आमचे कोण होते तर थॉमस कुन्स्ट आणि उल्रिका ड्रेसनॉ. आणि मराठी कोण होते, म्हणजे मी एक भाषा सांगते, असं आम्ही म्हणजे किती भाषांसाठी केलं असेल. मराठीत होते अरुणाताई आणि प्रज्ञादया पवार. म्हणजे सगळ्या तुम्हाला पर्स्पेक्टिव्ह पण दाखवायची होती ना कवितांची. सो पैस दाखवायचा होता सगळा, म्हणून वेगवेगळी अशी नावं घेतली मुद्दाम. आणि त्याच्यानंतर माझं काम काय होतं की जर्मन कविता माझं स्वतःचं इंटरप्रिटेशन, म्हणजे मी स्वतः कविता लिहित असल्यामुळे मला तो धोका जास्त होता की मला ती कविता जशी कळली तसं नाही मी करायचं. ते जे काय मांडलेलं आहे तसं व्हर्बेटिव्ह, पण त्यातनं अगदी म्हणजे निरर्थक नाही काहीतरी निर्माण करायचं, बट टू क्रिएट अ कोहेरंट टेक्स्ट आउट ऑफ इट. आणि ते तसंच्या तसं जर्मन कवीकडे द्यायचं आणि जर्मन कवितेचा तोच प्रकार, त्याच प्रकारे आम्ही ट्रान्सलेशन केलं. त्याच्यानंतर त्या दोघींना एकत्र आणलं. त्या दोघींनीही इंग्लिशमध्ये बोलायचं नव्हतं किंवा या सर्वांनी एकमेकांची इंग्लिशमध्ये बोलायचं नव्हतं. जे काय असेल ते मला सांगा, मी तिकडे पोहोचवेन आणि तिकडून. केवढी मोठी जबाबदारी होती खरोखर. म्हणजे आधी म्हणतात ना की भाषांतरकार हा एका अर्थाने भारवाही असतो, म्हणजे फोडीले भांडार धन्याचा हा माल तसं. पण ते तसं नव्हतं, ते तितकं नव्हतं. कारण एक शब्द आम्हाला चुकीचा कळला असता किंवा आम्ही तो ओव्हर इंटरप्रिट करून कळवला, पुढे नेला असता, तर तो तोल बिघडला असता त्या कवितेचा सगळा. आणि त्यामुळे हे ट्रान्सलेटिंग पोएट्स हे नाव थोडंसं काय म्हणतात बोजड वाटलं तरी त्याला अर्थ फार मोठा आहे की अखेर एका कवीनेच दुसऱ्या कवीचं भाषांतर केलेलं आहे त्याच्या कवितेचं. आणि मध्ये आम्ही फक्त काय म्हणू आपण की थोडंसं एक चॅनलाइज केलेलं आहे की हे इकडे फार झुकू नका, तिकडे दरी आहे, इकडे जाऊ नका, इकडे घाट आहे, असं आम्ही तो रस्ता दाखवत गेलेलो. पण म्हणजे आम्ही मार्गदर्शक किंवा पथदर्शक नव्हतो, इंटरलिनियर जे होतो. पण ही एक नवीन कल्पना मला ही फार आवडली. तसंच एक सोशल ट्रान्सलेटिंग म्हणून आमचं एक प्रोजेक्ट आहे. त्याच्यात पण एक लेक्टरी प्लॅटफॉर्मवर ट्रान्सलेटर्स एकत्र येतात आणि ऑथर. तर आता असं होऊ शकतं की एक पुस्तक 10 भाषात आम्ही ट्रान्सलेट करून घेतलंय, दक्षिण आशियाई भाषांमध्ये. त्याच्यात चायनीज पण आली, कोरियन पण आली, अशा म्हणजे अनेक भाषा आहेत त्याच्यात. ही पण पर्शियन आहे त्याच्यात. ऑथरला ज्यावेळी तुम्ही एक माणूस प्रश्न विचारता, तोच प्रश्न कदाचित पुढच्या 6 भाषांतरकारांना पडलेला असेल. त्यामुळे ते तिथे एक काम होऊन जातं सगळ्यांचं. आणि मग हे कम्युनिटी ट्रान्सलेटिंग सारखं होतं. कधी कधी तर ते भाषांतरकारच एकमेकांना सांगतात, अरे नाही इथे तो मागचा संदर्भ आहे बरं का, आणि हे त्या दिशेला चाललंय. तर हे मला असं वाटतं की भाषांतर करण्याची जी प्रक्रिया आहे ना, की मी माझ्या टेबलाशी बसलोय आणि घेतलं पुस्तक ओढून आणि मला आवडलं म्हणून मी करायला सुरुवात केली. म्हणजे अशीही अत्यंत प्रतिभाशाली भाषांतरकार आहेत की जे ते करू शकतात. पण माझ्यासारख्या बापडीला असं वाटतं की 2-4 माणसांशी मिळून मिसळून जर ते वाचून केलं ना, तर त्याचा कदाचित जास्त सकस होईल. असं कवितेच्या बद्दल बोलत नाहीये हे मी आता फक्त कादंबरी किंवा कथा ह्याबद्दल बोलते. कारण त्यातले संदर्भ शोधणं जे असतं ना, ते त्या मानाने ते संदर्भ सर्वसाधारणतः प्रत्येकाला तेच संदर्भ मिळणार असतात. कवितेच्या बाबतीत संदिग्धता हाच कवितेचा प्राण आहे, त्यामुळे त्या बाबतीत आपल्याला बोलता येणार नाही. पण आता मी ज्यावेळी माझं अरुणाताईंनी आणि मी मिळून त्या उल्रिका ड्रेसनरच्या 35 कविता केल्या, तेव्हा सुरुवातीला मी साकव संवादिका म्हणूनच होते, आणि मग नंतर हळूहळू माझ्या लक्षात आलं की आम्ही सहभाषांतरकार म्हणून तिथे त्या कवितांच्या बनात शिरलेलो आहोत. त्यामुळे आम्ही दोघींनीही विचार केला की ज्यावेळी तुमच्याच भाषेतल्या दुसऱ्या कवीशी काही एक सूर जुळलेला असतो ना, तेव्हा तुम्ही अजूनच तिसऱ्या भाषेतली कविता जर घेऊन बसलात समोर, तर त्याचं अतिशय चांगलं भाषांतर तुम्ही देऊ शकता.
When did you start writing them?
I think I was in the 5th standard, and the first poem, it was full of flowery language. It was written in Marathi because I studied in Marathi medium in Huzurpaga HSCP High School. And I still remember the first 2 lines. Aruna udela prabhat samaya झाला, उठवावया विश्वास धावत मरुत आला, हरित तृणे डोपणी साद देती कुणाला, नवनवतीचा हिरवा शालू, तो असतोच ना त्या काळात आपल्या डोक्यात, सृष्टीने परिधान येला. सो जस्ट लुक ॲट हाऊ आय ट्विस्टेड दॅट वर्ब. देर इज नो फॉर्म दॅट सेज परिधान येला. परिधान इला, परिधान केला. बट that's when I think I got the hang of it. That's okay. I mean, if you know the meter, you can turn the words around.
Yes.
You have that poetic license, and you can keep it at the level of you can make it comprehensive.
Right.
But you have that license. So and then I wrote it out. We had a blackboard outside our 5th standard classrooms, and I was writing my. Everybody writes something or the other every day. So I wrote my poem, and I still remember I had my Hindi teacher Mangala Kulkarni. She walked in and she said, "Hey, tu lihilayes." Because at that age, having that kind of vocabulary was impressive enough. I don't know whether that poem was good, but I'm very proud of that one. I will dig it out from Balika Darsh, or maybe if I recite it loudly, I'll get all the stanzas, because I don't have it in a written format any longer.
Oh, you don't?
So,
okay.
No, but I'm a my training started way back with my grandmother. My grandmother she had studied up to 4th standard. But she used to write small couplets or songs or poetry for each and every occasion. Someone's wedding, such or baby. She used to write a lot of poems and used to sing those in a song form. And she used to, I used to sit with her and say, म्हणजे ते काय प्राचीला गच्ची असं नव्हतं जुळवायचं ते आठवतं. पण I mean, I think I got my training through that, because she used to write it, recite it, and then I used to. One of her poems was कानिटकर वाड्यामध्ये आनंदी आनंद आनंद साध येतो चौघड्याचा सुरसनई मंद मंद. I mean, imagine. I mean, just 4th standard pass, but she had that kind of understanding of poetry or the rhythm. So fantastic. I think, so that got inculcated slowly.
It's in your blood, yes.
That's in my blood. The journey started there. Then in 5th standard, I wrote my first poem. After that, I think every year it became a sort of a tradition that I used to, a ritual to write one poem for Balika Darshan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in the school magazine. Yeah,
that's a nice.
And of course,
thing.
Aruna Dere was our role model. She used to write regularly for us for folk dance and all that. So
how would you describe this phenomenon of writing a poem?
The phenomenon of writing a poem, I can only explain what happens to me when I write a poem. Please. So sometimes I write a poem in one go. Typically, the inspiration to write a poem comes from an image that's haunting, or just some word, one word or a phrase that I have heard somewhere, and it's enticing. You just want to use it somewhere. That kind of. I mean, you don't decide conscientiously that okay, now I want to use it. I'll tell you, writing an article for Akshardhara.
Okay.
It was on Khasi poetry. So Tham, that's the known poet from that area.
Okay.
आणि त्यांनी लिहिलं होतं काहीतरी तो होता का ढाकाचा होता, आय एम गेटिंग कन्फ्युज नाव, पण द आयडिया वॉज द उजेडाचे कण पाखडायचे, समथिंग लाईक दॅट. अँड दॅट वॉज वंडरफुल. And that image stayed with me. And then later on, after 3 months or so, I wrote a poem where I said, आता मोगऱ्याच्या कहराचे गाणे म्हण, नको पाखडत राहू उजेडाचे कण. And I said, this sounds nice, but this is not mine. I knew that it's not mine. Then I traced it back to that. It was maybe not ujedache kana. He was talking about some sunrise or sun rays or something else, or prakashache kana. You know, maybe he was talking about light. But you know, that's how the images from another poem or another scenario enter your poetry. That is poem, but they give that extra fillip to your poem, I feel. So a poem is necessarily it is actually it's not blessing, I must say. It doesn't let you sleep. It disturbs you unless and until, and even if you write the poem, you feel this is not what I want to say. I meant something completely different. And the words are not capable of expressing what you have sensed when you thought that the poem is, you know, being born out of you. And so in most of there are many poems that I have written about writing poetry. So in one of the poems I have written, गेल्या जन्मी ही कविता अर्धीच भेटली होती, and that's the truth. किंवा लयबद्ध मौनाच्या मी लिहून पुसते ओळी, something like that. So that is my poetry to me. But without poetry, like, I mean, आता दिलीप चित्रे म्हटल्यावर आपण कान धरले पाहिजे कवींनी, कारण ते आपले गुरु आहेत. Then he also said that if you wake me up and ask me who am I will say मी कवी आहे. So I want to reach that stage where all other facets of my personality or these facets which give me my you know, introduction in that sense, in the my or they define my being, let's say. I want to do away with all that slowly, gradually, and stay a poet who reads a lot of poetry, translates a lot of poetry, writes a lot of poetry, and writes about poetry, talks about poetry. Poetry should be the core essence of my life. That is how I look at poetry. Not only writing poetry, but you know, from सगळ्या बाजूंनी मुरून जायला हवं कवितेत.
क्या बात है. Yes. So I have always had this question in mind, whether poetry can be taught.
Okay. Now, you know, you can teach a language. You cannot teach the expression. You are a language teacher. You know how it is. Now, आता म्हणजे थोडक्यात सांगायचं तर मेघदूताचं भाषांतर किती भल्या भल्या लोकांनी केलेलं आहे. And all of them were language experts.
Yes.
Yeah, they knew the source language and the target language very well. They had studied it. But their expression was different, because that has got something to do with creativity. Where do you bring that factor from? You can learn the language, you can learn the vocabulary, you can learn the words that rhyme well, like Vara, Tara, Gara, Sara. I can give you a poem, I can tell you how to create a song out of it, which has a rhythm. But a poem is somewhere else, actually. It's not inside that
words.
You know what I mean? Yeah. ती कवितेला एक अंतर्भूत ती अंतर्यामीची लय असते ना, ती सापडली पाहिजे. So it's not, I mean, it can be learned, yes, but can it be taught? That I mean, I have learned poetry, but I had my own methodology. I was going to my grandmother, and it was all at the subconscious level. So I have learned it. Obviously, I have learned it. Or I have read so much poetry in various languages. I have interacted. I mean, recently I attended a lyrics translation workshop. There I realized that, I mean, there were participants from around 14 countries, and in each language, something can be said, something cannot be said. And at that point, the translator becomes a poet himself, because he has understood the poem. He is learning how to write that poem in his language. So I agree and disagree. I think it cannot be taught, but it can be learned. How to write a poem.
That's a wonderful answer. I was wondering if you could recite a few poems which are your favorite. I mean, not of your own or anything else.
Oh, here I'm not fully prepared, but one poem that comes to my mind is Hilda Domin's poem, Nicht müde werden. Nicht müde werden, sondern dem Wunder leise, wie einem Vogel die Hand hinhalten. This is a poem by Hilda Domin. मराठीत त्याचं थोडक्यात, मुळीच थकून जायचं नाही, उलट एखादी जादू झेलायला हलकेच इवल्या पक्षाला तोलावं तसं तळवा पुढे करायचा. ही कविता मला फार आवडते. त्याचं अगदी सोपं कारण आहे की दमलेलो असलो आपण की मला आपल्याला एक वेगळी उभारी आणि बळ देऊन जाणारी कविता आहे.
जयश्री, what do you think is the role of poetry in our lives?
आता आयुष्य एवढं गद्य होत चाललेलं आहे ना, आणि एवढं अंगावर येत आहे सगळं, आणि संवाद हरवत चाललेला आहे. त्यावेळी मला कविता फार आधार देणार असं काहीतरी वाटतं. जे तुम्हाला गद्यात सांगता येत नाही ना, ते तुम्हाला पद्यातनं व्यक्त करता येतं. आता सोशल मीडियावर जे आपण पाहतो ना, की सगळेजण म्हणतात की काय सगळेजण कविता पाडत असतात वगैरे, पण मला असं वाटतं की लिहू देत, कविता लिहू देत, कारण you are entering that path of creation. You are creating words, you are creating images, you are creating a universe in that manner. त्यामुळे कविता आपल्याला एक प्रकारचं मानसिक स्थैर्य देतात, आणि सगळं काही आपल्याला माहिती असायला हवं असं नाही, हा आंतरिक विश्वास देतात, आणि आपलं ज्ञान तुटपुंज आहे ही जाणीव निर्माण करतात. त्यामुळे आपलं आयुष्य सुकर होतं. म्हणजे तुम्ही इथे आहात, या एका बिंदूवर उभे आहात, आणि तुमच्या भोवतीचं जे जग आहे, दॅट्स युअर पेरिफरी, अँड यू आर क्रिएटिंग अ ग्राफ थ्रू युअर पोएम. ते जगाचं एक आलेखन करतात, त्याचं रूपांतर करतात. म्हणजे काय माहितीये का, मला कधी कधी वाटतं की भाषा, रोजची बोलण्याची जी भाषा आणि वाणी, हे जिथे लोप पावतात ना, तिथे कविता सुरू होते. तिथे आपण कारण एकटे पडतो, आणि अशा उंबरठ्यावर बरोबर कविता आपल्यातल्या मौन नाही म्हणता येणार त्याच्यात, कारण मौन जे असतं ना ते जाणीवपूर्वक असतं, पण आपली जी जसं वी आर नॉट केपेबल टू क्रिएट एनी साऊंड. सो अराउंड दॅट पॉइंट वी मीट पोएट्री. आणि मग ते जे भाष्य आपल्यात असतं, जे आपल्याला म्हणता येतं रोजच्या भाषेत, आपल्या वाणीला ते त्याचं उमगत नसतं, ते भाषांतर घेऊन कविता उभी राहते. आणि मग हे जे सगळं अनाकलनीय क्षेत्र जे आपल्याला झालेलं असतं, त्यातले घटक हळूहळू दृष्टिगम्य व्हायला लागतात असं मला वाटतं. म्हणजे मग आता दडपून टाकलेले कितीतरी आवाज असतात, ध्वनी असतात, आणि हे फक्त विद्रोही किंवा उपेक्षित जनांच्या बद्दल नाही सांगत आहे मी. मला असं वाटतं, एक स्त्री म्हणून माझे काही दडपून गेलेले आवाज, अगदी सुखवस्तू घरातली स्त्री असतील तरी, तर मग कवितांचं काम मुख्य काय, दे सो मेमरीज. कविता स्मृती पेरतात, आणि त्यामुळे त्या समृद्ध करत जातात आपल्याला. दॅट्स वाय यू वॉन्ट टू रिव्हिजिट व्हॉट यू हॅव रिटन इन अ पोएटिक फॉर्म. तुम्ही जे रोज बोलता ते तुमच्या लक्षात का नाही राहत, आणि कविता लिहिली असेल कोणी त्याच अनुभवाशी तुम्हाला जोडून टाकणारी, तर ते का लक्षात राहतं, कारण तो एक बिकॉज देर इज अ ब्रिज बिटवीन यू अँड दॅट पोएम. त्यामुळेच मला असं नाही वाटत की अमुक कविता चांगली आहे आणि तमुक नाही. ओके, फाईन, ऍट द लेवल ऑफ क्रिटिसिझम ऑब्व्हियसली यू हॅव टू टॉक अबाउट ऑल पॅरामीटर्स, पण जी आणि शांतवन करणं हे पण कवितेचं काम नाहीये. कवितेचं काम काय असं तुम्ही म्हणूच शकत नाही, कारण प्रत्येकाच्या लेखी पोएम प्लेज अ डिफरंट रोल इन हिज ऑर हर लाईफ. Some people like a poem only when it is set to a song. ग्रेसांच्या जेवढ्या कविता आहेत त्या आपल्यापर्यंत पोचल्या, आपल्यापर्यंत म्हणजे सामान्य जनांपर्यंत पोचल्या कारण तेवढ्या ताकदीचे सूर त्यांना लाभले असं मला वाटतं. नाहीतर त्या आपल्यापासून बऱ्याच दूर राहिल्या असत्यात किंवा दुर्बोधतेच्या उमऱ्या पलीकडे उभ्या राहिल्या असत्या, वळचणीला उभ्या राहिल्या असत्या. म्हणजे मला काय म्हणायचंय की आपल्या आयुष्याची शैली आणि आपलं जगणं यांची सांगड घालून आपण प्रत्येक कवितेशी एक प्रकारचा विचार विमर्श करतो आणि व्यवहार सुद्धा करतो की बाई ये बस घटकावर माझ्याजवळ जा आता. एखादी असेल तिला मांडीवर घेऊन चोचवू आपण. केदारनाथ सिंगची सिंहची जी कविता आहे ना की काही पुस्तकं अशी असतात जी आपण उशाशी ठेवून झोपतो, काही पुस्तकं चाळतो, काही पुस्तकांचं कव्हर हाताळतो. तसंच कवितेच्या बाबतीत आहे असं मला वाटतं. मी आयुष्य खूप सोपं आणि सुकर करून टाकते, बाकी सगळ्या ठेचा खायच्याच असतात आपल्याला. पण एखादी अशी ओळ, मला वाटतं वैभव जोशीची एक कविता ना, एखाद्या आयुष्याला एखादी कविता पुरते, तसं काहीतरी एक आहे ते.
मस्त सांगितलं.
म्हणजे मला काय म्हणायचंय की म्हणजे केवळ आपल्याला जो विषय ज्ञात आहे त्याचं संकलन करायचं किंवा त्याचं यथावत चित्रण म्हणजे फोटोग्राफिक डिस्क्रिप्शन हे कवितेचं प्रयोजन नाहीये आणि तसा दंभ कवितेने मांडूही नाहीये. जे माहिती आहे तेच पुन्हा पुनर्कथनाच्या सूत्रात ओवायचं किंवा रचनाच्या सिस्टीम मध्ये, प्रणालीमध्ये बसवायचं आणि मग अर्थभान सांभाळायचं आणि लाक्षणिक अर्थाचं लेणं लावायचं असं काहीतरी. म्हणजे इट्स नॉट अन आर्टिफिशियल एक्सरसाइज, नॉट अन engineering space, you know, where you can say, if at all, then it is inner engineering. Yeah, I mean, with due apologies to Jaggi Vasudev Guruji, I'm borrowing his term, but I'm talking strictly about poetry. Yes. Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Now, my next question is about the writers or poets who have influenced you since childhood, because you have indulged in poetry since a long time.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of, a bouquet of poets and writers. Some are our favorites, some are not. Some have influenced us, some have troubled us by their reading or so. So I would like to hear about it.
Yeah, very well formulated. Some have troubled us, some have influenced us. See, there are some poets, you read them, and so when you say influence, do you mean that you are following their style? Not necessarily, right?
Not necessarily. Okay. For example, it can be a patriotic song.
So there are some intriguing poets as well. So the very first poet, oh God, I think we all started with Deva Tujhe Kiti Sundar Akasha, and I think so that was the first poem in that sense. Badbad Gita Sodun Dya, nursery rhyme, I mean the kinder leader. But apart from that, I mean, of course, from Sanskrit, कालिदासा शिवाय आपलं पान हालत नाही. त्याची जी प्रतिमा सृष्टी आहे ना, त्यातून मी बाहेर अजूनही आलेली नाहीये. खरोखर नाहीये, हे माझं मलाही माहितीये. आणि ते शब्द कुठेतरी त्या कवितांमध्ये संस्कृत इतकं डोकावत असतं. आय रीड वन ऑफ सच पोएम्स टू यू अँड तर माझी एक मैत्रीण म्हणाली पण की आता कोश ठेवून बसू का शेजारी, कारण त्याची सुरुवात मी सीता यामिनी ग ही निहारमयी रात्र अशी केली होती. कारण मी म्हंटल की ओके, यू हॅव द ट्रेंड that you use German words in English poetry, you use French words in Marathi poetry, then why can't I use my own Sanskrit words in my Marathi poetry?
Absolutely.
As simple as that, you know. It has got nothing to do with that nativism or fundamentalism of the language. It's just the feeling such beautiful words exist in my Sanskrit or our Sanskrit, so let's give it a try. Yeah. So on that note, I started writing that poem, and the flow was wonderful. So I wrote around 32 lines in that. It was Vipralamba Shrungaracha प्रतीची कविता होती ती. तर कालिदास अर्थातच, भर्तृहरी, भास ऑफकोर्स प्रश्नच नाही. आणि तिथून सुरुवात झाली आणि मग डॅफोडिल्स शिकलो आम्ही. तर ती माझी पहिली भाषांतरित कविता असं म्हणता येईल. कारण आमच्या वजेबाई होत्या आणि शी फेल्ट दॅट ओके, यू आर स्टडीइंग इन मराठी मीडियम but you should still know what is being written in other languages. तर हिंदीमध्ये पण मग आम्हाला सुभद्रा कुमारी चौहान आणि सुमित्रानंदन पंत यांच्या कविता त्यांनी वाचून दाखवल्या दाणीबाईंनी. आणि वजेबाईंनी तर आम्हाला अक्षरशः म्हणजे आम्ही सुट्टीत, मे महिन्याच्या सुट्टीत जाऊन शिकायचो कविता त्यांच्याकडे. तर तेव्हा डॅफोडिल्स मी पहिल्यांदा ट्रान्सलेट केली किंवा भाषांतरित केली. आणि थोडंसं म्हणजे असं वाटलं की बाईंना कशी दाखवायची, त्यामुळे मी शेवटपर्यंत बाकीच्या सगळ्या मैत्रिणींनी वाचली आणि बाईंना सांगितलं. पण तेव्हा असं हे वाटलं की नाही, कदाचित चुकलं असेल काही तर, म्हणजे एक धास्ती होती तशी. आणि आपल्याला आपण केलंय ते काहीतरी भाषांतर केलंय हे सुद्धा डोक्यात नव्हतं, पण आपण तेच मराठीत आणलंय आणि ते यमक जुळलंय, त्याचाच आनंद भरपूर झाला होता. सो म्हणजे बेसिकली काय सांगायचं, सुरुवातीच्या काळात ना तुम्हाला रोमॅन्टिसिझम भुरळ घालतो, त्याच्यापासून नाळ तोडून पुढे यायचं असतं. जे तुम्हाला रोमॅन्टिसिझम नंतर मॉडर्निझम आणि म्हणजे डेरिडा पर्यंत जाईपर्यंत तुम्हाला यु नो हाऊ डिफिकल्ट द पाथ इज. पण ज्यावेळी मग मी हळूहळू, मी सुरुवातीला मला वाटतं 15-16व्या वर्षापासून 20व्या वर्षापर्यंत तत्सम कविता लिहिल्या, ज्या काय आपण लिहितो तशा. त्यात एखाद दोन अशा स्त्री शक्तीवर होत्या, अशा तशा, कधी कुठेतरी बक्षिसं वगैरे मिळाली. मग मी JNU ला गेली आणि तिथे गेल्यावर जे सॉलिड लिटरेचर वाचायला सुरुवात केली. जर्मन म्हणा, फ्रेंच असेल, फ्रेंच मी थोडंफार शिकले, पण एवढी म्हणजे प्रभुत्व नाहीये माझं, त्यामुळे मी ती भाषा मला येते असं म्हणत नाही. पण इंग्लिश मधल्या पण किंवा भाषांतरित वाचल्या. आणि मग कोतेपणा नाही म्हणता येणार, पण आपण किती अजून मर्यादित अवकाशात जगत होतो त्याची जाणीव झाली. सो आय वुड से the vista was huge and I said, okay, ich mache eine Pause. I will not write. I will just read and read. So I kept reading. I never went back to writing poetry. I kept translating majorly German plays into Marathi, English plays into Marathi, Marathi plays into English. He karat rahle. Hindi plays. Then I translated Hindi poetry into German along with a native speaker.
Oh, okay.
That was interesting, and that was published, and it was read in Germany. I mean, I was not part of the reading, but of course it was read in Germany. It was a great experience.
Yes.
But you asked me which were the poets that influenced me.
Yes.
So the list is endless, actually. I mean, that everybody is suspect. I mean, like Neruda is there, and in Portuguese I have Rui Coias or Lorca. हिंदी मध्ये सगळ्यात माझे लाडके सध्या म्हणजे विष्णू खरे आणि मंगलेश डबराल.
ओके.
ऍब्सोल्यूट मासा. आय मीन केदारनाथ सिंह तर होते ते पण. आणि जर्मन मध्ये तर आय मीन आपला 1 तास त्याच्यातच जाईल इफ आय स्टार्ट हू आय रीड रेग्युलरली. कारण आता कसं होतं ना, नाव यू डोंट रीड अ पोएट, यू रीड अ पोएम. बिकॉज यू डोंट लाईक ऑल पोएम्स ऑफ ग्रेस, यू डोंट लाईक ऑल पोएम्स ऑफ इंदिरा संत. एक कविता तुम्ही ती शोधून पुन्हा वाचता आणि दरवेळी त्याचे you get a different layer, you discover a different layer of that poem. That's what happens with me now after 3 decades or 4 decades. I think 3 is fine, 4 is too. Yeah, for 3 decades reading poetry, I don't read a poet, and I cannot say that I got influenced by a poet, but I got intrigued, let's say. Intrigued, and I was it triggered the self-reflection, we can say. Okay. म्हणजे कसं की now I'm writing poetry for last 10 years at least. So I can reflect upon it, and you can be honest with yourself. So when you write a poem, you are happy, then it doesn't matter whether you get 10 likes or 1,000 likes.
Correct.
And when you have a rubbish poem, you know that you have written a rubbish poem, and you know that it's going to get 1,000 likes because it's playing to the gallery. That happens, and that is very important process. That is an important step in writing anything, in writing any kind of creating something, and poetry even more so, because in poetry you are responding to your inner self which is giving you one image after the other. There is superimposing, and you are drawing from various sources, and then it's संपृक्त म्हणतो ना असं, संपृक्त. So it's condensed.
Yes.
One experience theirs is condensed in 6 lines, and then you present it. You present it to the audience who doesn't know what has gone in your mind. I mean, gone around in your mind to create that kind of canvas. So obviously it's superficial, and then the critics would say, ह्याच्यात माझा एक मित्र आहे, प्रोफेसर आहे, तो मला म्हणतो की तुझ्या कवितेत लढिवाळ अर्थविन्यास आहे, चिंतनशीलतेची खोली नाही.
Okay.
Fine, I understand what he is trying to say. But then, तुला माहितीये, in German, translation means übersetzen. And that übersetzen also has a connotation of a ferry which goes from one bank of the river to the other. And there are 2 banks of the river. So I think even when I write my poem and someone else reads it, he's also in a way translating it or transculturating it. I love this word. I have read it in one of the essays that talked about a Chinese poet. And I said transculturating, that is what is required when you translate poetry. Karan bag na, when you speak about your question is about poetry, but it's actually, you have the experience, but it's an individual experience. You're trying to give it a kind of universal what do you say, appearance or ambience, and there is one more word, of course I'm not remembering it, as you can see. But म्हणजे त्याचा पिंड जो त्या अनुभवाचा, तो तुम्ही वाढवताय आणि तो परिमाण, वैश्विक परिमाण देऊन ठेवायचंय तुम्हाला त्याला. पण त्या वैश्विक नसणार आहे, वैश्विक अनुभवाशी जोडून घेता येणारी नसणारच आहे. तिचा जीवच एवढा असू शकतो ना. म्हणजे माझी एक कविता आहे, ते चाफ्याचं फूल पावसात पडलं खाली, तेवढ्यावर काहीतरी मी म्हटलं की चाफ्याचे फुलं धाकले पाहते त्यात रूपडे, असं काहीतरी मी लिहिलं होतं. पण ते इतकी गोड झाली ती, आणि त्याचा तेवढाच अर्थ होता. पण ती अनेकांना आवडली, कारण तो बरोबर अनुभव असा तळहातात त्यांना घेता आला, उंजळीत घेता आला. तर पण मला आता तुला भाषांतर या विषयावरच बोलायचंय मला थोडं, की भाषांतर हा जो शब्द आहे ना, त्याला आपण हल्ली बरेच जण अनुवाद म्हणतो. आता हा अनुवाद हा शब्द मला मान्य नाही, हे मी अनेकदा सांगितलंय आणि मी पुन्हा इथे सांगणार आहे. दिलीप चित्रे तर याला अपभ्रंशच म्हणायचे, अपभ्रंश हा शब्द वापरायचे भाषांतरासाठी. भाषांतर हे मला, म्हणजे आपण ज्याला उदासीन पातळी म्हणतो ना, त्याच्यात मान्य आहे. आणि पण अनुवाद हे, तुम्ही जर अनुवाक या संस्कृत शब्दाकडे गेला तर ते फक्त मागून म्हणणे, म्हणजे आपण कशा पर्वचा म्हणायचो, संथा दिलेली असेल तर त्या दृष्टीने मला असं वाटतं की भाषांतरकार बरीच भर घालतो त्याच्यात, कारण त्यांनी सगळं स्वतःच जे काय बरोबर आणलेलं असतं ना, त्यामुळे ते भाषांतर सकस होतं आणि ते तुम्ही दुसऱ्या भाषेत पोचवू शकता. तर त्यामुळे त्याला, माझी एक मैत्रीण त्याला अनुकृती म्हणते.
अरे वा.
भारती बिरजे डिग्गीकर खूप मोठी कवयित्री आहे, ती पण सुंदर, म्हणजे इंग्लिश मधनं, आणि स्वतः इंग्लिश मध्ये पण लिहिते. तर ती अनुकृती म्हणते त्याला. नंतर अजून कोणीतरी त्याला असे काहीतरी अजून एक शब्द आहे, तो मला आठवत नाहीये, पण मी त्याला आणि अरुणाताईंनी विचार करून याला अनुसर्जन असं नाव दिलं, कारण आम्हाला खरोखर त्या वेणा सोसायला लागल्या की हे कसं मांडायचं मराठीत. तर आणि त्याच्यानंतर मला अजून एक शब्द वापरावासा वाटतो, की तुम्ही छायानुवाद करता, भावानुवाद करता, आणि मग खराखुरा जे काय मांडायचं तो छायानुवाद या एका शब्दासाठी मला अनुवाद हा शब्द मान्य आहे, कारण तो काय सुंदर आलंय सगळं जे काय. इट्स ऍक्च्युअली द शॅडो, अ व्हेरी व्हेरी विविड अँड व्हॉट यू से पॉवरफुल शॅडो ऑफ व्हॉट इज बिंग सेड देअर. आणि इन माय लँग्वेज आय से इट दिस वे. तर ते पुनर्सर्जन होतं. मग त्या अर्थाने मला असं वाटतं की एकदा पुन्हा या व्होकॅब्युलरीकडे बघायला हवं आपण. म्हणजे डोळे मिटून जे आपण अनुवाद असं म्हणून, मी म्हटलं मी अनुवाद नाही करत, मी ह्यापैकी काही एक करते. अपभ्रंश करत असेल तर मग माफ करा, म्हणजे पण अनुवाद नाही.
Very nice. Coming back to your poems, so you have been writing in Marathi language majorly, right?
Yeah.
So are you considering the translation of your own poems either by you or someone else into any other language or languages?
Interesting. मी तुला माझी एक मराठीतली कविता वाचून दाखवते, म्हणजे त्याला जरा जास्त माझ्या बोलण्याला वजन येईल. शीर्षक आहे स्थिरचित्र. स्टील लाईफ ना, स्थिरचित्र. दिशांच्या कवेत उभी स्तब्ध झाडे पुरातत्वकालीन चित्रापरी, कुणी गर्भिणी पक्षिणी गात गेली निळे आर्त ओतून प्राणांवरी. मुक्या पाडसाने खुनी पारध्याला कटू शाप द्यावा तसे चांदणे, वनी भंगल्या यक्षिणीच्या कथेची पुन्हा चालली दीर्घ पारायणे. मृदा ढासळोनी मुळे स्पष्ट होती झुले धावती अंध वेगातले, ऋतूच्या अखेरी कशी येत जाती निशा मंजिरीला अधाशी फुले. नभी उंच माथा उभ्या कातळाचा पृथ्वीवरी मंद छाया दिसे, तुझ्या पावलांचे ठसे शोधण्याचे जडे वास्तवाला अनामी पिसे. ही कविता आहे माझी. आता तू मला सांग, याच्यात एक वृत्त आहे, एक ताल लय आहे. मी जर म्हटलं की ही कविता अशीच्या अशी एक दुसरा कॉरेस्पॉन्डिंग मीटर शोधून आय वॉन्ट टू गेट इट ट्रान्सलेटेड इन टू इंग्लिश, इट्स गोइंग टू किल दॅट पोएम, राईट? सो व्हॉट German or English? I want to translate it into German more than in English.
Okay.
Because German is, you know the category they're framed, the otherness, that othering is complete in German. Yes. English ka hai na, English part, it's partly our language, so it has that nuances. So it's halfway there.
Yes.
So it sounds very artificial when you say something like this in English.
Yes.
You know, the 5-star hotels मध्ये मेन्यू कार्ड मध्ये कसं असतं आलू पराठ्याचं वर्णन, स्टफ्ड विथ अँड ऑल दॅट, अँड देन इज अरे मग सरळ आलू पराठा म्हणणार, यु नो दॅट. या, सो जर्मन मध्ये तो धोका कमी वाटतो. आणि जर्मन डज नॉट, थँक गॉड, डज नॉट हॅव द काइंड ऑफ प्रिसिजन दॅट इंग्लिश हॅज. म्हणजे असं मला बऱ्याच वेळा जाणवतं, इस्पेशली पोएट्रीमध्ये. मला असं वाटतं जर्मन कॅन डू मोर जस्टिस टू माय पोएट्री, अँड आय विल सर्टनली ट्रान्सलेट इट विथ हेल्प ऑफ अ नेटिव्ह स्पीकर who understands poetry and who understands me. That's also very important. So I am tending towards translating the poetic thought of my poem.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, yes. Because it will not give the gist of that stanza. It will certainly stick to that stanza, but it will be it will carry that thought forward and not talk about the meter.
Okay.
Current restricting hoil. That's so certainly, most certainly, because I have around I don't know, 300 odd poems which can be published. I mean, good poems. You write so much, but yeah. I had written a few poems in English when I was exploring my understanding of that language.
Okay.
And I also translated it myself into Marathi. And then I realized my Marathi translation is an independent poem, though it's
okay. Yes.
Yeah. So that. And it's very important for, one advantage of learning so many languages is that you are not ashamed of making mistakes. You are not ashamed of your pronunciation, your Zat's melody, the intonation, because you are conveying something. You are trying to communicate. You are trying to reach across. So with that understanding, when this inhibition is gone, I think you can express yourself in any language.
Yes.
I mean, initially, you and I, we have the same mother tongue, right? I thought, won't it be a little artificial if we spoke in some other language? I mean, you and I, wir können auch auf Deutsch sprechen. Warum nicht?
Yeah.
oder man kann einiges nur am Rande erwähnen und sonst unerörtert lassen. Das haben wir auch diskutiert. But we need not go into that.
No.
I mean, the idea is not to say, see, I know so many languages, I know so well, and look at my pronunciation, look at my vocabulary. No.
No.
Poetry writing or creative writing is not about what you can write, but what you should not write. That kind of shifting has to happen inside your brain. I mean, so many good words. You cannot, stuff your poem with those. And say, oh, excuse me, don't do that to me. Nobody is going to give you that kind of leeway and say, oh, wow, you know so many words. But then dictionary is full of words. It's not a poem.
Just now, I will have to pull you out of your poetic mood and take you to your published translated books. So I would like to know in detail about it. Which
see, there are articles that I have published in various magazines. Diwali Anka. Then I wrote a series on poetic traditions from Indonesia, from Bangladesh, from so basically South Asia, Southeast Asia, in Akshardhara that ran 8 to 9 months. I don't know how many people read it, but a lot of research went into it, and I was happy at the end that okay, I know so many traditions now. Then I regularly write for newspapers, but that is more about book reviews. And so I have this book. I don't know whether you can see it. This is Tasa Vaze Jhanana. This also came by the title of this book in original Turkish is the Time Institute. I got German translations of these books, which were done in consultation with the Germanisten or with the author. This is another one. It's called as Judas Baum Tor, but I have to, it's about the gate, and it's about this. I have named it Nakshidar, because it talks about foliage on that. Door or not door, the gate, the huge gate, etc. So I said Nakshi Dar and with a hyphen, so it can talk about the Dar, and because in Marathi you don't have a gate, you just have a Dar or Dwar. But I didn't want to make it Nakshi Dwar. I said it has to be Nakshi Dar, and popular agreed. So these are award-winning Turkish novels. And I think 10 of them were translated into Malayalam and Marathi. So that's and since they had only German translations available of these two, I had the fortune of I was fortunate enough to translate them. But my most favorite, I must show you, it is this. This is for Pratham Books, Leni and Tuk Tuk Mitra Pahi. And I'm fascinated by the books that are produced in Germany. This was Klaus Baumgart's German book. And Pratham Books approached me and said, can you translate? I said, why not? I mean, it's hardly any, I think 20 lines, 20 odd lines. But this is for the age group, I think 3 to 5. And my third line was, लेनीला काही पाहिजे, त्याला कशाची तरी उणीव भासते. And my friend from Numavi, he said, उणीव भासतीये, 3 ते 5 वर्षातल्या कुठल्या मुलाला उणीव माहित असेल. So you have to think like children when you translate. Then I of course told him, शिकू देत की नवीन शब्द, like never give up, never accept. And then this is another very interesting book, Natsuki Remora. So there is this peacock who refuses to dance, and because he refuses to dance, it doesn't rain and stuff like that. So very interesting. So I like to translate children's books. I like to translate novels. And of course, my most favorite so far is Sakshi Bhavane Bhaktana, because that is what a translator does necessarily. Sakshi Bhavane Bhaktana. So, a detached kind of perspective that you take when you translate. Very recently, I have translated 3 articles. This is Yugavani on Arun Kolatkar. And I have translated 3 articles originally from German into Marathi. So one was the foreword by Günther Dietz Sontheimer. to Kalya Kavita. Then what Zontheimer wrote about Jayashree, and Bandini wrote about his translation, because he translated from English into German. So about his translation. So it was quite interesting. It took me 2.5 months to actually find, because it's not easy. Zontheimer, his understanding of Jayashree, his understanding of the Jayashree of the 90s, and he's talking about that to a German audience. And I'm translating it into Marathi for an Indian audience. Marathi audience knows what Jayashree is. Yes. So how do you maintain that perspective and that tone? It was a challenge, but Arun Khopkar read that and he told me, wonderful translation, and I'm happy because he's a big name. Yeah. So right now I have only these these copies with me. I'm also working on a few translations. Actually, I translate and publish in magazines. Basically, I feel that that's it, and I haven't collected that material, which is my fault. I know. But I have a collection of translated poems. So one fine day I might just publish translated poems.
Fantastic. Yes.
Why not? Yeah.
So from which language have you translated them?
They are translated. See, I have the fortune, again, thanks to Goethe Institute, that I can actually meet the contemporary poets in Germany. Yes. So like I met them this time. So I sit together with them. So I have translated something from Persian into Marathi, because I sang the Persian poet, French, Portuguese, Spanish, Hebrew, only one poem, but yes, I translated it. So, and German, of course, German and English, I keep translating into Marathi. I have translated a few poems by Aishwarya Patekar into English for one of the magazines. I think for Sahitya Academy or some such, I'm forgetting. Yeah, so I like to, सगळीकडे विहार करायला आवडतं मला, because I like, and जर येत नसेल तर मग तो आता बसणारच, is that feeling. करणार, that is the mantra. Yeah.
Yes. So just an academic question, that how did you teach yourself to handle various genres? Because it is not easy. So translating a poem is different, translating a text, translating some educational material, or like storybooks for children. It's all different.
Yeah, again, I'm handling such projects, and that is my pathway to that particular genre. I get to interact with so many people who are part of that process of creating that book. And I don't want to prove a point. I don't want to reach somewhere. I'm not in a hurry. It's just I am naturally curious about anything that has been put in black on a paper in black and white, that has attracted attention of so many people of various age groups. I said, and how will I say it in my language, or how will I say it in this language or that language? And each language gives you a different set of challenges.
True.
If I feel comfortable, I go ahead with it. Otherwise, I leave it. As simple as that. So, but you're talking about genre. So basically, I've never done subtitle translations. So films I keep aside. But I like to study a film and do a Didaktisierung and do analysis of its cultural factors that have, that you can pick. Obviously, again, German. That is their spring in the punkt. But after that, any Marathi movie that you look at, or any Hindi movie that you look at, when you look at it as a representative of a particular culture, you find so many interesting facts.
Yes.
Then you don't mind if somebody is not dancing well or whatever, because that's part of your cultural ethos somehow. Yeah. So films, music, of course, because Western music and Indian music, and building a bridge, that is, I simply love that. I'm not talking about fusion. It's about discovering how they discover each other. That's a wonderful process.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think
And now I'm coming back to a very important genre, which was part of at JNU. I talked about Bertolt Brecht's Bertolt Brecht. No, he didn't have Rasavigna. Sorry, alienation effect, Fremdungs effect of how effect that is called, and Rasavigna of Abhinav Gupta. That is based on Natya Shastra of Bharata Muni. So it's about what one should avoid in a play and what one should include in a play. Somebody is looking at the pure aesthetic Erfahrung is what experience. And experience. And Brecht is looking at creating the kritische Distanz, the critical distance. And they're talking about the same methodology or the factors that can be used as theatrical elements. Someone says, use this and you will have complete aesthetic experience. Brecht says, don't use it and you will reach the critical distance. Wonderful. They never met each other. Totally different time zones and all that. But why? So that's how I got interested in theater. And I think I also was fond of acting. So Nautanki baaj to drama queen nahi hu abhi tak. Lekin, but say, theater has been my passion. And कविता हा माझा श्वास आहे. अजून काय पाहिजे माणसाला जगायला. तर आमचं एक थिएटर प्रोजेक्ट चालू आहे. त्याच्याबद्दल बोलू का पुढं?
हो प्लीज.
थिएटर ट्रान्सलेशन प्रोजेक्ट. तर काय झालं, when I was working with Goethe Institute for so many years, I have been seeing that they are organizing scenic readings or staged reading or performative reading, whatever you want to call it, of many German plays that are available in English translation. So, Goethe Institute had that kind of the elite audience then, because it's limited to those people who understand English to a certain extent and they can relate, performed or read out to them. So I said, sorry, English is also our language, but we have around 22 or more gesetzlich anerkannte Sprachen. They are part of our Grundgesetz. They are part of our बघ आता एवढ्या भाषा आल्या की मला काही सापडतच नाही. आपल्या राज्यात त्या भाषा नोंदवलेल्या. So I said, and Goethe Institute is active in so many other centers. The local language plays a major role. So why not offer German theater to them in their language? Create awareness about what is being written, what is being performed in Germany, in German theater today. Because if you talk to anyone, one doesn't move beyond Schiller, Lessing, Schiller, Goethe, Günter Grass, Brecht in a major way, but Brecht is not adequately translated into many of Indian languages. I mean, Gopu Deshpande called it systematic destruction of Brecht, it's not a joke. I mean, he was a playwright. And he knew what he was talking about. So I was thinking that we are not talking about adaptation. We are talking about translation of German plays into the local language. So we curated the plays. We had a focus author, Roland Schimmelpfennig. Apart from that, we had Elfriede Jelinek, Thomas Kjok, and many more. And we had we selected some adult plays, some plays that had universal meaning, application, some of plays which were restricted to German context or say European context, but why not? And then children and youth plays, because I feel we need a lot of them on Marathi Rangabhumila पण पाहिजे आहेत. So all that, and we curated around 25 plays. We selected 7 languages, 7 South Asian languages. I think Hindi, Bangla, Marathi, Urdu, Hindi, Sinhalese was also part of it. And English plays, it's easier to get English translations. I don't have to ask someone to translate from German into English. They are done by our institutes in London or Australia or New York. They will give us the ready script. And then there is a tendency of translating from English into these languages. But I have noticed very recently, you don't do justice to the translation that way. But, so only 2 aspects, very important, what came out of this project. Number one, it's important to involve a theater author or a playwright and a director, or even the artists, the actors, to create the Rangavrutti, the performance text. That's important. So we involved some theater experts also who did not understand German, and obviously their first thing was, oh, this doesn't read like a play. I said, yeah, but that is phase 2. That's where, because unlike a poem or a novel or a short story, theater is created. There is a difference between drama and theater, right? So the dramatic text is there, but te jivanta kadi honar? You know, it has to come to life only through performance, and these elements are not there. You have to they say usvun bahar kadhayla pahije na. It has been put there. You have to see where you find it. How do you access that text? That is very important. And slowly people are understanding now what I am trying to say. I am saying, don't try to adopt it to Indian context. It's what we want to say. This is what is being done in Germany right now. So come with that kind of curiosity, inquisitiveness. If you again, ते मराठीच्याच ह्याच्यावर बेतायचं असेल, गोट्या नाव ठेवायचं आणि चिंगी नाव, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It need not be.
There won't be any discovery.
Yourself to a foreign context completely. That is what we are trying to achieve, and I think we are काठावर तरी पास होऊ आम्ही त्याच्यात. कारण सांगते, when we did the Poets Translating Poets project, one poet from India said, काय यांची पोएट्री आहे, ह्याला कविता म्हणतात हे. And now, after 10 years, when Santosh Padmakar writing Thapacha Kavita, I don't know whether you have read it, he's writing in that style. I mean, he doesn't know Thomas Kunst. पण म्हणजे आपल्याकडे पण रेनेसा कसं उशिरा येत गेलं, तसंच कवितेच्या बाबतीतही होतंय आपल्याकडेही. So there is no harm in saying, okay, no value judgment. त्यांची कविता अशी असते. So it's different.
Correct.
ना? Kavita, theater,
Exactly. I think you have to embrace all languages and all forms with open arms. Right. Otherwise, it is not possible to digest also all these things.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm saying you have to be inquisitive, you have to be curious. ते लहान मुलाचं कसं असतं ना, ते एक शब्द घेऊन त्या भोवती फिरत बसतं बघ. Any baby, it's a new word, he'll say it 10 times. Then he will create some blabber around it. And that is how you should approach a language, and not as a given structure. Of course, if you are appearing for the exam, then I mean A1 and A2, you need the certificate. I am not contesting that. But be playful with your language, and then it will mesmerize you.
Jayashree, you are a part of many literary committees.
Yeah.
So please tell us about it.
See, officially I cannot name the organizations. No so problem. I'm only saying that I'm part of a committee that announces prizes for translated works. And I'm part of a committee which operates from abroad and gives awards to people in various walks of life, literature, and also different categories of literature. So basically on these literary committees, the major task is read the book, write short notes. What did you like in that book? What was missing according to you? And no grading, nothing. You just have to speak about the basic plot of the book. And so you get to read so many books and you don't have to purchase them. That's a yeah, these are very good books. They are very good books. So I like to be a part of such committees when I'm approached. The only thing I don't like is the way criticism is written in our country.
Okay.
Generally, I'm not talking about someone like Sudhir Rasal or Vasantabaji Dahake. I mean, they are masters. But I always ask, even for translators, where is the Nachwuchs? Where is the next generation who can deal with the language in a capable manner and say something meaningful? Because I feel you look at music criticism, you look at theater criticism, the literary criticism, it is taught fine, but they make it so difficult to understand. No, then you are actually pushing away the general reader from or the and theater criticism is sometimes really a mockery of criticism, where they just narrate the story, and at the end they say light changle hote and light design was good and set design was missing. I mean, what?
No.
Yeah, exactly. So that is, I feel, apart from learning how to write, you should also know not how to write, how to appreciate as a viewer, as a listener, as a reader. It's also important to know how to write criticism as a critic. In many of and it's most of the cases. Why many? That is my understanding of the situation. Films, where do we go from here when we look at writing criticism?
That's a really big question you have put forth. And
कुठे पुस्तकं कुठे आहेत? मराठीत पुस्तकच नाहीयेत. You refer to even for translation, how many good books are available for translation? मग आहेत ती तर, then obviously you go back to English translation. Half of it you understand, half of it you just say, okay, this is jargon, I don't follow, but then I have to use it because I want to sound intellectual. End of the story. There you cut the creative part within in yourself.
I think we can go on discussing a lot of things. I mean, I feel like we have not even started, but maybe we can do more episodes with you with all, like there could be one for translation, for poetry translation. I mean, there can be so much.
And I can suggest so many other names. We can have a dialogue with that.
Yes.
It need not be one person. Can be sort of three of us chatting about it. Because it's fun when somebody says, no, Jayashree, you're talking rubbish. I don't agree with you. That's fun.
That's fun, yes. That's how we grow.
That's the only then we can reach synthesis. Marathi that's nahiye synthesis वगैरह, but still. And that's what keeps us going, You have to take a stand. Yes.
Absolutely. So now coming to the end of our interview today, today's discussion. So I would like to know, you have been in this industry for such a long time. So what changes would you like to bring about in the language industry?
First of all, language industry, that hurts, the word industry. But everything has been, there is a Verdinglichung, no? You are making everything tangible, and it is an industry. It is an industry of say $43 billion, which is only an iota of the complete the engineering industry, but still it is an industry, and it's not only industry, it is language services industry. So you're already going into that corridor of serving someone. So when you are serving someone, there is a demand and there is a supply.
Yes.
So it becomes an industry, and language for me is something more than that. So the language services industry is technical translation, subtitle, voiceovers, etc., etc. I don't know. There must be many more facets to it. But language services industry, if I keep aside that disturbing part, that is disturbing for me because ich habe alte Knochen, but I'm an old timer, so I will still say bhasha manje kai and vani manje kai. I live in that cloud, but now cloud means something different for you as a translator, right? Yeah. Yes. So from that cloud to this cloud, if that journey has to be bridged, from that iCloud to this iCloud, then have to have proficiency, and I would say we should create more pools of translators who share each other on a platform. So a platform translators of a particular sector is very, very important. And that has to be an honest effort. No tendency of hiding anything. You just say that this is my work in progress, can help me. And the help also has to be very frank and honest that this is not correct what you have translated. It can apply to literary translation, it can apply to technical translation, and then you can start that mentor program where you have experienced translators who work together with a team of 6 translators and only monitor what they are translating as a course. I'm not saying that you take the Aufträge, the orders from the industry and start translating. No, but a complete understanding of the translation process has to be there, along with the theory and practice. And Lalita, you should design one such course or a platform, because now we are all thorough with and proficient with the use of online resources. So I think why not? It's the need of the hour, das Gebot der Stunde. And so language industry, I think British Council had recently done a survey, but they were talking translation because there were publishers involved, etc. But they did interview me, and a similar question: what would you like to do? So I said, in Germany, in German-speaking countries, in the US, the collectives, translators collectives, where they come together, they have a nominal fee, they help each other, they speak with publishers, they speak with industry guys. It's a united effort. Yes. Now, an Indian translator is working in isolation. He's guarding his own interests. That's fine. But he's not growing because he doesn't know. So that is something I will strongly recommend for the language industry. Secondly, language in its purest form. Create awareness. There should be a platform where you say what I should read as a Marathi speaker, but I study in an English medium school. So there has to be a structured where someone takes up the challenge of creating a body of work and select books. Okay, this is my understanding of Marathi. I go to a Marathi medium school and I have already read 1, 2, 3, 4. आम्हाला 10वीत ज्ञानेश्वरीचे श्लोक. Obviously, someone in an English medium or convent school doesn't. But if he is curious, where is the guide for him? What should he read? Correct. And then, because we don't have any structured guidance, the approach is either ignorance or that snobby remark, Marathi, oh my God, Marathi, that. But they are not to be blamed. The children are not to be blamed. No. We have to look at ourselves and say, how am I promoting? See, I'm sitting here, I'm working for an organization which is maybe, 30 years ago, this country was as small as Maharashtra. Okay, fine. They have only one language, so that culture, etc. I understand. But look at them today. They are paying me to promote their language and culture and literature and theatre. And I'm doing it willingly. Correct. Why can't I do the same for Marathi? I love this language as well. I want to tell people, see, there are so many things happening in Marathi. I don't want to have an approach, हे तर आमच्याकडे आधीच होतं. No. No. Not that. Doesn't just say that, by the way, have you read Arun Kolatkar? He was a bilingual poet. He wrote in English and in Marathi. इतकी साधी माहिती द्यायची आहे. शब्दांचे फुटवे, no bombastic language, nothing that would shoo them away or त्यांना असं नाही दाखवायचंय मुलांना की अरे तुम्हाला एवढं माहिती नाही. नो, आज आपण यांची गोष्ट ऐकूयात. आणि ते अगदी ते लाडीक पण नाही, बरे का मुलांनो वगैरे पण नाही करायचं. जस्ट एक मुलांमधला अँबॅसेडर आणा, लिटल open to discussion, etc. It can be done at the school level, it can be done at government level. Thought has to be there. We will. I want to grow. आणि हे फक्त मराठी नाही, कुठलीही भारतीय भाषा घ्या, कुठलीही जगात भाषा घ्या, तुम्हाला तुम्ही जर त्या भाषेकडे श्रद्धेनी, आणि श्रद्धा म्हणजे मी रिलिजियस कॉन्टेक्स्ट मधली म्हणत नाहीये, इफ यू हॅव दॅट काइंड ऑफ फुल कन्व्हिक्शन, दॅट वे श्रद्धा, दॅट ओके, दिस इज माय लँग्वेज अँड माय इन द सेन्स I belong my language, not I possess this, तो फुली फिलिंग नाहीये. तर तशी जर फिलिंग असेल ना, तर कुठलीही भाषा तुम्ही जगासमोर मांडू शकता. प्रमोट हा शब्द सुद्धा नाही वापरत मी इंडस्ट्रीत. आपण मांडूया तर आधी. नाही, पण म्हणजे मला असं म्हणायचंय की किती भाषा आहेत. आता तुम्ही अरे त्यांच्याकडे हे नाही, अरे पण म्हणून तर आपण आहोत ना, डायव्हर्सिटी म्हणून तर आहे ना. म्हणून तर मला असं वाटतं आता हिंदीमध्ये किती सकस लिहिलं जातंय काय काय, पण आपण त्याच्यावर फक्त हिंदी मधलं म्हणून बघू ना. आमच्या मराठीत पण आहे, हे नको ना आणायला. ओनली देन आपण त्याला एक असा एक स्वायत्त दर्जा प्रत्येक पाहिलं ना, it will work out. So that is what I want to, that kind of space I want to create, or zones I want to create in language industry. Then it can remain an industry. I don't have any issue. As long as you respect all languages. That is what I keep telling my students. Don't say "Bapre hai Marathi hai" in that tone, because if you don't respect one language, you cannot learn another language. कारण त्यांचं थ्रॉबिंग, पल्सेटिंग तेच एक तत्व आहे. पाणी, वाचा, शब्द.
You are compiling your own poems for publication, right?
बरोबर.
So not the translations, just your
अजून मागं मी कविता संग्रह पण नाही मी पब्लिश केलेला. 2-3 पब्लिशर्सनी मला सांगितलंय करशील तेव्हा सांग, वी आर इंटरेस्टेड. तर आता मी ते सुरुवात केलेली आहे. त्या कवितेच्या बाबतीत फक्त एक गोष्ट सांगते की माझी कविता ही साधारणतः वृत्तातली असते, किंवा जरी संस्कृत शब्द जास्त असतात, किंवा प्रतीक विथ ऑल ड्यू रिस्पेक्ट टू ऑल कम्युनिटीज, ब्राह्मणी प्रतीक जास्त असतात ऑब्व्हियसली, कारण मी तिथे तशाच घरात वाढलेली आहे. तर त्यामुळे कधी कधी असं वाटतं लोकांना की मला कोणीतरी म्हणालं पण गेल्या शतकातली कवयित्री, गेल्या शतकात जन्माला यायला पाहिजे होती, समथिंग लाईक दॅट. सो आय सेड नो, इट्स नॉट लाईक दॅट. मी सगळं जग फिरून आलीये आणि आता मी पुन्हा इथे विश्वासाने आय एम कन्व्हिन्स्ड दॅट दिस इज व्हॉट माय पोएट्री शुड बी लाईक. दॅट इज ऑल. आधी मी लिहित होते ना ते कदाचित दांभिक असेल, कृतक असेल, पण आता देर इज अ कन्व्हिक्शन, अँड दॅट्स वाय आय ग्रांट माय सेल्फ दिस काइंड ऑफ गायी घरास येता उघडे पडे कवाड, भयभीत वासराला शोधून तूच काढ, कारागृहात पान्हा का गोकुळात कान्हा, पदरात देवकीच्या आक्रोश एकताना. हे असं मी लिहितेय. हे कुठून आलं हे मी का नाही शोधायचं, नाही का? तर असेच आहेत. आता तुला मी आहे का वेळ, मी एक कविता वाचू वेगळी?
अगदी, नक्की वाच.
बघा, ही संगीत क्षेत्रातून आलेली आहे.
ओके.
देह हे एक तंतुवाद्य आहे. आता ही मुक्तछंद, तुम्हाला लय आपोआप शोधता येईल. देह हे एक तंतुवाद्य आहे, 5 तारा जुळव टणकारासाठी, खुंट्या पिरगळून पहा एवढ्या घट्ट, की कणसूर काही उमटलेले लाकडाच्या आतच पार्थिव होऊन राहील. लाकडाचं वय त्या थरात निद्रित असतं. तुझं काय? वनवीणा होत गेलीस आतून तर बरच, नाजूक आघात होतील मात्र शततंत्री. जवार काढून घे जाणकाराकडून, मग मेरू पासून देह संधीच्या अंतरावर झंकार उमटत राहतील. बाकी मंद्र स्वरात होत विस्तारत जावे, तीव्र स्वरात निमुळत्या खाचे चिरावे. ऐक, धनुकलीनं बोटांची टोकं फक्त रक्ताळतात, लाल सुरांना गंध येतो स्मृतीचा. झाडांचे तंतू असतील तर त्यांच्या तारा होतील. तुंबा असेल सहस्र वर्षांपूर्वी अरण्यात रडणारा एखादा वृक्ष, आणि कूजन करणारा पक्षी त्याला कधीच सोडून गेलेला असेल. एरवी देहांत होतो तेव्हा प्राण प्रारंभतो. यात ही आलेलं म्हणजे तुला कळलं असेल. आणि शेवटी मला ते शब्द पण असे नवे नवे करायला आवडतात, त्यामुळे प्राण प्रारंभतो असा मी म्हणजे परिधानियालापासून प्रारंभतोपर्यंत.
Jayashree, I would like to know what are the projects currently you're working on?
My personal translation projects?
Yes, that's right.
See, I am part of the social translating project, where I'm translating a novel by Sasha Stanisic. Or the correct Bulgarian pronunciation is Stanisic.
Okay.
Because somebody corrected me in Germany this time. They said that's a German pronunciation, but the real the eigentliche Aussprache is anders. So it is Stanisic. I have learned it hard way. Yeah. So it is about hair. And it has been translated into English and many other languages, 10 to 14 languages, but not in Marathi so far. तर त्याचं मी मराठीत करतेय पाळवमुळं असं नाव ठेवलंय मी त्याचं, हे अकून पाळवमुळं. दॅट इज वन. अँड नवीन किशोर ऑफ सिगल publication, Kolkata.
Okay.
The famous German list, you know that, yeah. So he has written a wonderful poetry cycle, Knotted Grief, that is KNOTT, Knotted Grief. So he's asked me that I can translate it into Marathi. So I read the poems. They remind me of the German poet Said, Said, Zaid, the Persian one who shifted to. So very interesting, and it talks of Kashmir, the situation in Kashmir. So I said, yes, it has to come into my language now, and I will bring it into my language. मी माझ्या भाषेत त्याला घेऊन येणार आहे. Verbatim translation.
That's profound. Yes.
Yeah.
Great. So wish you all the best for these projects. And
excited about these two projects, because you're talking about Sasha Stanisic. When he was 12 years old, he came to Germany as a migrant, and he doesn't feel migrant any longer. He speaks German, he has all the necessary documents, and he still hasn't lost touch with his roots. From within, there is nobody. His village doesn't even exist on the map now. So that's a totally different kind of belonging, the feeling of belonging or beingness also. The Sayender. And and Naveen is looking at going away from your own house in that, from a different perspective. So I think gradually I will migrate into that territory of translating migration. Maybe. Interesting.
Great. मजा आली जयश्री.
मला पण खूप, आणि मला अजून म्हणजे मी अजून 2, 3, 4 तास बोलू शकेन. त्यामुळे पुन्हा बोलव, आपण पुन्हा गप्पा मारूयात वेगवेगळ्या विषयांत.
येस, सर्टनली. थँक्यू सो मच. थँक्यू सो मच.
काही प्रश्नांची मी म्हणजे काय म्हणतात, सुफ्रीनस्टेलंड उत्तर देऊ शकले नाही, कारण मी वाहवत जाते, मी वाहवत गेले, तो माझा स्वभाव धर्म आहे, मी एक नदी आहे, अशी मी आता एक पुढे कविता करायला लागेन. त्याच्या आधीच आपण थांबूया.
ओके, थँक्यू व्हेरी मच. बाय बाय.
आता काय म्हणतात, गान्स मायनर साइट्स. मलाही प्रचंड आनंद मिळाला. काही नाही ना, मराठीत आपण फक्त हसतो, गोड हसतो, त्यातनं सगळं पोचतं. त्यामुळे गोष्टींचं कसं भाषांतर करायचं हे मोठा महत्वाचा मुद्दा आहे. त्याबद्दल पुढच्या भेटीत बोलू.